I'm Reggie, and that's Brian. This is R&B Talks.
Hello, everyone.
Greetings, Brian.
Hey, what's up, brother? What's up, man? Glad you're back from your hiatus. Your hiatus. That's a great word.
It
hiatus.
is a hiatus.
Hiatus. I had to take a hiatus. I even used it in the Facebook post. We're on hiatus. Makes it sound official. Makes it sound like we got set somewhere on orders, right? Like,
speaking of orders.
Okay, what's up?
I did visit people in North Carolina that are literally those people that could kill you with this thumb.
Why are you hanging out with people that could kill you with this thumb? Okay.
No, I mean, like, so my wife, her, like, pretty much sister from another mother, lives there. She's stationed down there with her husband, and both of them are SF people, and they're both like the real deal SF people. Like,
nice.
They really can't tell you anything, but they're past the point where they're operators anymore. So they're like teaching or managing groups of people.
Yeah.
And they literally, like, you wouldn't, I mean, in these, like, they're not like big, you know, like me, right?
They just know.
But but you can literally just watch them walk, and you're like, no, I don't want to mess with you. I mean,
he has special skills.
it's just, and it's not like it's just because of, you can tell something, if you've been around a while in any kind of like fighting or anything like that, how somebody like walks and like looks and like holds themselves and like how they do things, you can tell.
Oh, yeah.
Like, okay, that dude, don't.
You can tell someone like that because they're taking in the entire spectrum of everything that's going on all the time.
Yeah.
Like, they notice they're from peripheral to peripheral all the time.
But anyway, they're so sweet though, man. We had a great time. We hung out with them. But I told my wife, I was like, yep, you know what? I'm good. I'm a big guy and can take care of myself, but I ain't. No. Matter of fact, when shit hits the fan, we're going there.
Yeah, we're going to their house because he knows things. They
know
it's
her.
things.
It's, I mean,
her and him.
Her and him.
Things.
They're both SF people, and they both know all the SF people.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you know, and they train all the SF people.
So it's one of those cases where you're going to be half dead before you know they're there.
Oh yeah, you would. I guarantee you, her husband, right? Because I talked to him for a while. You just be dead, brother. He would have no court, and he would have no problem with it. You know what I mean? And it was just, if it meant that way, right? I mean, but he's such a cool guy. I really enjoyed talking to him and his wife. Oh, they're so beautiful people though, man. And it was such a good visit. That made the whole trip really, because my wife and her, like, they could not see. They're kind of like me and you. Like, they could not see each other for like forever, and then and it'd be fine. You know what I mean?
Be like best friends.
Oh
for
yeah,
life,
but done, right?
Yeah.
So that was really cool. Down there, and we were close to Fort Bragg, and it's like down there, man. It's kind of like you can't throw a rock without hitting an SF guy anyway, because that's kind of where all they hang out.
Mm-hmm.
They go. That's just the main thing. But anyway, that was really cool. We went to Gatlinburg. And it was my daughter's birthday, and so we like made sure she picked the restaurants and what she wanted to do and stuff in Gatlinburg. That was cool.
Yeah.
We went to Hilton Head Island and hung out a little bit.
Nice.
Didn't sleep at all, but glad to be back, man. So
I'm glad you're back.
Yeah.
This is a very important part of my week to have these discussions. So,
you know, and I thought about it too. I was like, man, I'm trying to. Nowadays, I look for illustrations, things I can rope into like a story or part of like a pseudo sermon or something, because I just always think that way, right? And there's so many times, man, I was like, oh, you can, but yeah. But the one thing that I didn't really, I liked a lot, but I didn't feel like a reverence though, like I would expect. It was the Cathedral of the St. John the Baptist in Savannah. Beautiful. Like it was so cool, but like it did not stir. Like you'd think something, you know, like I when I was at older, some of the bigger churches when I went to Europe like a long time ago, It did. It was like, this is, whoa. That was, it was just cool.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been there, and it's, but I wonder if that has something to do socially with everything that's gone on within, the Catholic Church, right? Like, I think a lot of the reverence for me, because I thought it was beautiful. When I walk into a place like that, for me, it's not necessarily the spiritual part of it. It's the look at what went into this place.
Oh, sure.
Right? Like the architecture for me is big. My wife loves the architecture. Everywhere we go, she wants to go in the big churches. Honestly, it wears me out sometimes, but that's okay. I still will go. But they're just so gorgeous and well built. But for me, I wonder if, I remember a time when, before all the controversy a decade ago started about the Catholic Church and everything that was going on in it, there was a reverence for the Catholic Church because there was still this kind of substrata of secrecy and kind of, and then when everything hit the fan, I feel like the shine was off, right?
Yeah, possibly.
And that's where it kind of went for me. But I mean, I don't think you have to have like total spiritual reverence to just appreciate the, there's some.
Keep in mind, I was there with my nephews.
True.
And they were running around, and so
makes it hard to pay attention.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Now, what was one thing that I really need to say. They had a carving of Jesus being put in a bone box, right? But Jesus was never put. You know what I mean? It was like, it was the weird.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
They was going through. They had the crucifixion story about him carrying the cross and all that stuff, and then there was a picture of him being put in and like not even bones. It was like his body.
That's
I was like, what? What?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. Like, there's nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, anywhere that I've ever heard of this talks about Jesus being put in the Jewish traditional bone box. Yeah. Like, I'm like, what? So that was weird. It was really, really weird, man. That one caught me, and it caught me off guard, and I had to like look at it for a minute and go, is that really what that do? I
will say though, it was cool to kind of see the crucifixion story on the windows like that.
Yeah.
Like where they go around, like seeing the crucifixion story that way. That was really kind of cool to see. Because, I mean, even in the Christian church, one of the things I find about the Christian church is you have to get most of your visual from the sermon, right? Christian churches or modern Western churches that are not Catholic churches usually aren't that ornate, right? Like they're usually kind of plain unless they've had some pizzazz put in there by the decorating for like, wherever we eat, wherever we gather. But one of the things that I do appreciate, and I don't know that it necessarily has anything to do with spirituality so much as being able to kind of visually be impacted by certain aspects of the biblical story, is to be able to see those just gorgeous, like stained glass interpretations of the story and things like that. Yeah. That to me is pretty powerful. And it makes me also kind of understand why a lot of people kind of fall in love with that tradition. Right. Because the reverence for the beauty of it and and the passion of what they put in to create it and all that stuff.
There's no doubt that I truly appreciate some of how they go about their church buildings, I should say.
For sure.
You know what I mean? But then you wonder too, like, if you did that nowadays, like if you made a church like a Gothic cathedral now, would it'd be truly expensive, like was then too, but time and everything else, and would that be better spent on other areas, right? You know what I mean? Because
for me,
it's weird.
For me, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, a nice church is nice, right? But for me, spend the money in the community. Well, spend the money, in outreach and things like that. I mean, if nothing wrong with doing what you can when you can, but for me, I'd rather be in a plain old Whitechapel church, just listening to the word and knowing that the money that we're putting in is going out of the community to kind of help.
Well, I moved away from, I'm still, okay. Let me say this. I'm still on the fence about like how I think about worship and the actual church and stuff and I say that because there's a big part of me that likes the concert type of thing where it's like you have a big sound system. Everybody's, mic'd up really well. You got all this stuff. You got the sound kicking, that kind of thing. But there's another part that says you don't need that. None of that stuff is necessary and actually can detract from actual worship and, that kind of thing. You don't need LED walls. You just need, you don't need all that. But I think it's just different strokes for different folks when it comes to that. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think one of the things that you have to be careful of too is I think when you start crossing that line from regular church to sort of mega church, which is where you start to see these big like concert level displays. And let me tell you, man, something, dude. And to this day, it sticks out in my memory when you guys were playing at Southeast for that men's retreat, the wild game dinner where the guy from 13 Hours was there to speak.
Yeah.
Man, it was a really great experience to hear you guys up there playing the classic rock music and just there is something to that is awesome. Like it's cool. But you're right. Is that necessary? No. But I wonder though, and this is something that I've often wondered, and I actually know the answer, but I still, you kind of roll things around your head. Is it almost necessary to catch attention nowadays? I mean, when you're competing with tablets and cell phones and, social media and I feel like, especially with the younger generation, it's almost necessary.
It sounds like we have a topic.
It does.
For another episode.
It does. Ooh, but this episode, I'm excited. I'm as excited about this one as I was about our last topic, Reggie. Would you like to announce the topic, sir?
Intimacy.
Is intimacy. Or into me I see.
From a husband's perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, by the way, you kind of have to talk about the wife's perspective a little bit in order to make it all kind of line up.
Yeah, but dude, I mean, intimacy is different. Okay. So first off, let me ask you this, Brian.
Okay. Sure.
How would you define intimacy?
Well, Reggie, that is a very good question, but when you ask that question, the first thing I would say is intimacy for men is definably and definitely different than it is for women, and especially for husbands. But for me personally, if I'm defining intimacy as far as I go, it's a mixture of the depth of all aspects of my marriage in a more visceral sense. Men are more, and I use this word because I can't really think of a better word to use, but men are more carnal in nature, right? So, when I think about intimacy with my wife, I think about touch and feel. For me, if we're in the same room and nothing is being said, my wife can put her hand on me, like put her hand on my shoulder. And to me, that's intimacy, because to me, that can change the entire mood of the room for me, right? Like the mood of the day. I mean, there's been studies that have been shown that men who have good levels of intimacy with their wife, a wife's touch can actually relieve anxiety and slow their heart rate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of, for me, that's my definition of intimacy, is that, like I said, carnal, not in the sexual sense, so to speak, all the time, but more of that touch connection between my wife and I that lets me know she's there. That,
I'll put it this way. What you just said, I think, is kind of like intimacy is a vehicle for vulnerability for a man.
It is, yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I for me, it's not really just, it's not, I don't know. I guess physical, yes. But I'm saying for me and my wife, I made it a point to get to know her and not just know what she likes, but like really know her soul and try to keep, and I have to keep doing that because it's, you never not have things to learn with your wife. So for me, it's always been about like, how can I better understand my wife? And that to me allows me to be intimate, because that brings up, okay, well, I have to then be open to her, knowing things, that no one else would ever know, or there's that's the vehicle that that's there for that. I mean, what some research suggests is that intimacy can be defined as the emotional component of love, feelings of closeness, bondedness, and connectedness. That was one thing. And to your point, there's the intimacy is enhanced through mutual understanding, as well as the ability to perceive one's own feelings, because people who have a hard time being close to themselves also struggle with the ability to be close to others. Yeah. So really, I think this is why I work with me and my wife so well, because it took me probably so long to figure out me. Once I did, it made it easier to be close to somebody else, Yeah. And it took a while for me, but yeah, but there's correlation between your level of, I would say, like if you had like an intimacy meter,
yeah,
if you are comfortable with yourself and know yourself, then you're much more capable of an intimate relationship than someone who wasn't.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I got out of some of that.
Well, I think in order to have true intimacy too, you got to go back to the beginning of a relationship, right? Like,
yeah,
when you're talking about being close to someone in that way, especially for men, men can usually tell pretty quickly, this is the person that I'm willing to spend that time with. Right.
Yeah.
I think that when we consider that relationship, for me, like just to be honest with you, there's nobody on planet Earth, no relative, no one that knows me as well as my wife does.
I hope not.
There's no, and I don't, nothing, like not who I am, how I think, where my mind's at all the time. Now she'll tell you all the time, I don't know what you're thinking. But then she'll, in the next sentence, tell me exactly what I'm thinking. Right. So, but I mean, but I think the most important thing that I wanted to kind of get across in this was not only to try to help women understand more clearly where men are coming from in intimacy, but also to help guys understand that we are not easy creatures to read. We're simple creatures for sure. Men are far more simple than women, but we're still not easy creatures to read, right?
Well, we have different way. I think I'm going to get to that in a minute. We have different ways of going about that, but I think one of the things I really want to convey is that intimacy is not, it's work.
It sure is. Yeah.
I mean, you have to really try.
Yeah.
This is not something you just poof, it happens. Now, some people are more, I guess, more capable of it, maybe would be the right term, but like you really have to work to like create an intimate relationship.
Well, but without a doubt too, in fairness to women, historically men suck at it.
Oh, terribly.
Like,
well, but that goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like men have to make effort to understand their perspective of the woman.
Yeah. And
the woman needs to have the same thing with the man. I mean, that it doesn't work because you just don't accept the differences. It works better.
Yeah.
When you do realize the differences and stuff. And so we like me, I have to understand my wife is very emotional.
Yeah.
And like her, like I have to understand, like saying thanks to her for doing things, and like having time and talking to her, like just taking the time out of the day to like just have a normal conversation. Stuff like that. That shows her that that's what she likes me to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that whole love language book.
Yeah.
And that's true for a lot. That kind of rings true for a lot of things. But with my wife, some women are task oriented. Like if you do things for them, if you give them things, if you words of affirmation, all that kind of stuff. There's different things different women like, but that's different than what guys like.
Well, I think one of the things we need to be clear about too is, I'm gonna delve into a section here that's, normally kind of avoided by men and women alike, is the difference between sex for a man and sex for a woman. I think for women, you have to make an emotional connection. Your wife, you have to make an emotional connection, and for it to go to that point. But what I think women don't always understand about men is, to men, that is the ultimate in intimacy, right? That is the pinnacle to, and I'm not saying emotional intimacy, but in just relational intimacy, it's a big deal for men. And it's not about, you're going to have to forgive me because I'm going to be very blunt in this podcast. It's not about the orgasm. It's about, this is the culmination of our relationship and us coming together. And think about it. It's how we create our children. It's how we, for men, it has to do with lineage. It has to do with, yeah, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
And I'm not saying that it's the most important component, but I think that there's a misconception amongst women that it's about, No.
Okay. So sex can be used in a conquest kind of manner.
It can, for sure.
Which is not the way
it was meant to be.
It's healthful at all.
Yeah.
And men kind of do that anyway, because we're physical creatures that have, and it's a physical need that we have.
Yeah.
There's one article I found called 6 Truths About Men and Sex by Laurie J. Watson. She has the 6 truths are,
okay,
sex begins in the body. For men, we do. That's like if we're aroused or whatever. That's really, we have a physical reaction to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
For men, sex is a hunger. Sex is energy. Sex is excitement. Sex is the way he gives love.
Yeah.
Sex is love. There was a couple things though that I latched onto because I thought that really portrays it well. When she says for men, sex is a hunger, she kind of said every man wants to be full, but his craving for sex is like a craving for chocolates. Each sexual episode holds the exquisite possibility of a surprise-filled confection, maybe creamy smooth or buttery rich, perhaps a little raw and bittersweet or silky sweet. And I mean, look, that's kind of, chocolates being so, but I mean, that to me, I was like, well, yeah, that's exactly, it has this possibility to it. And the sex is energy thing. The hormonal energy gives him the drive and aggression to pursue his life's purpose and work and to pursue his partner, right? So that whole sex for a man actually gives him the boost to be what he needs to be. And then when she said sex is love, I was like, what do you mean by that? Sexual release makes men feel like they are finally home. And that all really made sense to me. It was like,
it's the truth.
That's
okay, really
that's
good.
Better than I could freaking come up with, but we live in a culture that has just distorted sexuality to such an extent that it's insane that, so I think that it's that gets so messed up that we lose sight of that it is a good thing.
Yeah.
In the right context.
In the right context, sex is actually healthy.
Yeah.
It's a component to health. The American Medical Association, this was on their website. I was looking it up there, and sex, and it's more prominent in men than it is in women, but it's also available in women. Sex relieves anxiety. Sex has regular sex with your wife or husband can relieve depression.
Yes.
It has, and this goes back to that whole thing. And I think I've talked to you about this before, not on the podcast, but we were built wonderfully by God, and all the things that we need for regulating life, he gives us without the, medical intervention, exercise, sex, all those things, dopamine, all those things are released during those acts. Married couples that have sex more often argue less. Married couples who have sex more often share intimate moments more, and not sexual moments, but intimate moments. I've heard this said, but I think this counts for both sides. I think what we forget is in our modern world where sex has been weaponized. You hear this an awful lot, well, I only give it to my husband when I need something, or these things like that. You hear that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But what I think people need to understand is when you starve a man or a woman of intimacy, real intimacy, whether that's emotional intimacy,
physical
whatever. Intimacy, whatever it is, what you're going to get is a version of that person that's built only for survival in that relationship, right?
Okay. So on that note, let me say this. Emotional
Into me, I see.
Emotional intimacy can appear in a number of different ways in a relationship. So if it's working, having long, meaningful conversations about your hopes, fears, goals, and other feelings. Yeah. I know my wife wants to she wants me to tell her about my bad day. She wants me to tell her when I'm feeling something, right? Yeah. I don't really want to tell her any of that. Really. I don't.
Struggle with it. Yeah. I will openly admit that I struggle with that.
But I do, because I know that she wants to hear that, because that's being vulnerable and being intimate with her.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I do all the time. Talking to each other about things that happened at work, each person, that's the same kind of thing. Making time to spend together, showing curiosity about each other's lives, which is just being interested.
Absolutely.
Empathizing with your partner, validating their feelings and giving them emotional support. Exactly like you're saying, right? So when you're actually doing those intimacy things correctly, those are what kind of happen.
Yeah.
When you don't, and this is like what you're talking about, the whole well, he ain't getting none tonight kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely absurd. Now, not granted, look, sometimes when that happens, signs of that lack of support. Mm-hmm. You feel lonely.
Yeah.
You don't share important things. Mm-hmm. There's you start to be distanced. There's lack of physical affection, which we're talking about. Not empathizing, where you really don't, you conflict with each other and you have arguments. I mean, so intimacy is definitely something that you have to work on, but there's clear signs you're doing it right, and there's clear signs you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. But there's also clear ways to get help for that too.
Yes.
But and just to not to put too fine a point on it, but here's the real truth of what you were saying. When a man or a woman says something like, "Well, I'm not giving my wife this," or "He doesn't get this unless," you're not just chipping away at the masculine or feminine side of that relationship. You're literally invalidating your partner.
Yeah.
And let me be clear, and I'm just going to give you an example. Last night, my wife and I celebrated our anniversary. And we were sitting down at dinner, and have you ever had that moment where you're talking to your wife and you realize, man, I forgot how great this is to just sit down and be able to talk with my wife. Mm-hmm. I had that moment last night where it was because we're so busy, right? And with the kids and everything and all that's happened over the last week or two. And, I realized last night that I am not validating her by being forgetful, right? But then I thought to myself as I was preparing for this today, and I felt a real moment of guilt when I thought about it, is how many times have I invalidated her without even realizing I'm doing it?
Oh yeah.
And
we will.
And we will. And my wife she's so great. I can't even begin to tell you how important a cog in my existence my wife is. I can't even begin to lay out how that works. But you know, when you use sex as a weapon or as leverage, you're not just starving your partner of true intimacy. You are literally invalidating them as a person. You are not valid enough for me to put the work in to be, you know, completely all in. I'm only going to be in when it's beneficial for me, right? That's a super dangerous game to play.
And that's where the biblical idea of intimacy comes into a huge part of why it's better.
Yeah.
Because you're when you read about, like, there's intimacy in the Bible. There's like, how can you develop an intimate relationship with God? But there's also information in there on how you can be intimate with your spouse. And for a man, there's no clear definition of intimacy than when you're supposed to love your spouse like Christ loves the church.
Yeah.
It's a sacrificial love.
Yeah.
There's no more intimate idea than the sacrifice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really clear for a man, and really it goes on to talk about the wives and too, but from a husband perspective, biblically it's really clear. Like, you know, sometimes you got to shove your nonsense beside. You put your ego away.
Yeah.
Be forgiving and try.
Well, I think there's also a level of that where I think the definition of sacrifice is kind of skewed over the last, I want to say the last probably 50, 70 years.
Yeah, probably.
Because just for an example, my grandfather's way of showing that wasn't sitting down and talking to my grandmother about their day and their plans. It was to work himself to death to make sure that she didn't have to worry about money. Right. And I, being raised by my grandfather most of the time, have that habit where a lot of times I'll be like, you know, if I really want to take care of my family, I'm going to go out here and kill it and make sure that they don't have to worry about anything.
But
make sure my wife doesn't have to worry about anything.
That is a way men show intimacy.
Yeah,
though.
it is, but it's also, yeah, exactly. It's one way, but I think what men in general don't do is figure out how to put that puzzle together where they're doing a little bit of everything to try to meet the need, right? And I'm very guilty of that. I mean, I really am. I'm very guilty of being like, I'm going to go out here and kill it. I'm going to go out here and sign new clients. I'm going to go out here and do this. I'm going to go out here and make it as good as I can. And I'm also really hard on myself when it doesn't go well or when it doesn't go up to what the expectation is, right? You know, so I think my advice to men in the general sense would be find a way. That's okay to do that, to go out and take care of your family financially and do the things that need to be done and be a great contributor and a provider. That's really good. That's a great component of being a good husband, good, you know, but you got to find a way to weave those other things in, right? And not every man is going to be as good at it as the guy next to him. So being comparative, we need to put that sore away, right? It's not going to work. But what I'm saying is make it like last night. I wanted to take my wife to dinner, not because it was our anniversary. That's what we were celebrating, but I was craving conversation and time with my wife.
Yeah.
And I knew that I needed to feed that. So that's what I did. Right.
You know, I think I actually like to spend time with my wife, but that's also because she knows she leaves me alone. So by her, like, letting me do my thing, like we're doing tonight,
yeah,
I feel like she gets me and I want to spend time with her in return. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
there's a give and take with everything.
Yeah.
I read this post since I've been on Facebook more, which I don't really know if I'm happy with or not.
Yeah.
But
necessary evil at this point, right?
I hear you. But there was a post to this. There's one group. I don't remember which one it is. There, years ago when I was really active in Facebook, I had joined all kinds of groups, and they said this guy was saying how him and his wife own 3 businesses. They have kids and stuff, and they're having a lot of marital issues because his wife is getting mad about household chores not being done and all this kind of stuff. And he's running at the end of the rope, doesn't know what to do or that kind of thing. And I was reading through it and it was like, okay, dude, like you, regardless of how busy you are, at some point you have to say, what does my wife need from this relationship?
Yeah.
And if that means I got to like clean up a dish or something or do the dishes every once in a while, then you freaking do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you give a damn, get off your ass and do it.
Yeah.
The same token though, the wife needs to understand, like if her husband's out and they're killing it as well and doing things, then it's okay. Maybe you need to communicate and talk to each other and figure it out. Who's going to do this? Who's going to do this? Or is it both of you or whatever? But you can't solve everything by just assuming it's going to be taken care of, whatever. Intimacy is really, really, really centered on communication. And a lot of times when I'm looking at posts on social media or friends of ours who are like freaking having problems, it's because they don't even freaking talk to each other.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I had this one, I won't say who it is. And we asked him, like, have you talk about whose roles or what and do all this kind of stuff. And 9 times out of 10, if you ask somebody, if they've discussed things with the, like, who's going to do what or what you think about.
No,
they don't talk about it.
No.
Well, no. I mean, look, if your husband and wife, in order to even get to the point where you're intimate, you got to get to the point where you're agreeing about what the hell
what you're being intimate about.
Yeah. I mean,
sure.
dude, it starts way back there, So I think a lot of times people just aren't, either they're afraid or, and I'm probably guessing most of the time it's afraid of rejection or whatever it is.
Well, I'd say 99% of the time.
Yeah. But dude, you got to get over that. Like, okay, from a man, let me say this, from a man perspective.
Yeah.
You got to have the courage. Put your big boy pants on. You are responsible for your household. You need to initiate that conversation.
Well, and to give a little bit of insight to that, I think there's a combination of things brewing right now that cause that to be a problem. Number one, if you were raised in a traditional household, as well as I do, Reggie, we weren't taught to talk about our feelings.
No,
we were taught you tamp that crap down, man. You don't tamp it, and then if it starts to come out, you tamp it harder. No, we don't put that on the table, right? So that being said, we're fighting that. Number two, we're fighting an out and out war on masculinity, which makes men even more nervous, right? Like I ran into something today, and this is very interesting. I have a client, and he made a statement. I came out today to help him, and he was talking to 2 women. They were probably in their 30s, attractive women, and he's creeping up on 70, and he was having trouble getting his wrist brace on because he has some issues. And he didn't ask these women to do it for him because he was literally afraid of offending someone.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's this attack on, I remember back in the day, you could tell a woman she was beautiful. You could tell a woman, man, you look great today. You could, and it didn't have to be a wife or a girlfriend. It could just be a friend or somebody you met. Hey, you look awesome today. But it's so frowned upon nowadays because it's looked at as being condescending and talking down. It's not looked at as what it actually is as somebody, that there's been this thing where men are just like, I ain't saying nothing. And it creeps into their relationships because
I hate that too, dude.
It just drives me crazy.
Because when I used to travel a lot, 35 weeks out of the year, gone.
Yeah.
On a plane Monday, come back on Friday or Saturday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and you look around and people are traveling, they're busy and all that kind of stuff. And one of the best things to do was like, if I wasn't cranky,
Yeah.
be like,
fair enough.
just give somebody a compliment.
Yeah.
Right? It'd be like some woman walking down the street, like, ma'am, those boots, they're kicking.
Yeah.
Or, ma'am, look, that dress, I love that dress. That is awesome.
Your hair looks amazing today.
Yeah, I mean, it's all shit like
looks
that. They used to do it all the time.
Right.
And most of the time, and this is 10 years, 12 years ago that I was traveling so much, it was taken, this is only 12 years ago, was taken well.
Yeah.
Right? I never got, I shouldn't say never. There was maybe a couple of times where it was like, but most of the time it was like, oh, well, thank you very much. And you see the mood change.
Yeah.
You can't do that. I mean, like, can you, I'm going to try it though, dude. I'm telling you what, man, I'm telling you, I'm going to start doing it. I'm just going to start complimenting people.
I've been doing that lately, but I've been trying to find ways to compliment people that are non-offensive.
There are some weird things that the culture has like twisted now.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just saying, I encourage everybody to do it.
Well,
I do.
for me, I feel like it's a loss of emotional intelligence, right? Like, it's not, look, man, like, you have to have a certain level of emotional intelligence to be able to discern between someone who's hitting on you or trying to take advantage of you and someone who genuinely is like, wow, man, you look great today, right? Like, yeah, man, great job. I've even been in situations where I've told people, hey, man, great job on that workout, and they stink eye me. And I'm like, dude, I'm just saying, man, you killed it. Like, you did really well.
And that's
right?
not it. We're not even talking about,
yeah,
we're not talking about intimacy anymore, really. Are we?
But what I'm saying is, I think there's this emotional intelligence, and this is something else too. And this is for the ladies. Before you judge the fact that your husband is disinterested, take a look at how he was raised and who he was raised by, and how he was taught. Right? I think a lot of women confuse how a person was raised and the morals and the values that were given with being emotionally broken or unintelligent.
Yes.
Right.
However, when I was doing some reading, the modern day idea of male intimacy is not cool.
No, it's not.
Okay. Yeah. So I didn't copy any of the resources, but I was reading through some stuff about how these men should be, it goes farther than just trying to be more empathetic, more, in touch with their emotions. It's like way farther than that, and that's because look, like, I agree that like men should be able to cry somewhat, but man, that there better be a reason. Because here's this goes back to that same thing we talked about. Like, you still want your men to have that sense of danger.
Yeah. You want your men to be men, right?
I mean, you still want that. So I think that goes back to what we're saying about that toxic nonsense, that push to be more emotional and everything is really gone too far now.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of like, if you read modern psychology stuff about male intimacy, they get into this nonsense of, oh, it's okay to do all. I mean, look, no, it's still not.
Well, I mean, honestly, man, I think that's probably part of the onslaught. And I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm proud. This one might get some comments, Reg. I think this is directly responsible for the onslaught and the outpouring of male feminists. Because I don't really actually think there's such a thing as a male feminist. I think what happens is men are so browbeaten by the current definition of vulnerability that the only way they know how to identify it is acting as a feminine individual, which pushes them into that, I'm going to be a male feminist. Because let's be clear, right? I'm not anti-men crying. I never have been. My wife has seen me cry. One of the most devastating things that ever happened to me was the loss of my Uncle Kenny.
But
I still to this day have trouble with it. And I, it was something in me broke for a while when he passed. And it was obvious. I know it was obvious. And I shed many a tear over the loss of my Uncle Kenny.
Okay. And I'll be honest with you, my dad.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a group, Stained. Do you remember that group, Stained?
Yeah, for sure.
They got a new album coming out. They got together.
know.
Well, that song, I saw the video the other day. It says Here and Now, and I'm like, oh, cool. I'll click it on it. I could not watch it.
Yeah.
I could not. It broke me down.
Yeah.
In like 30 seconds, I was like, nope. I shut it off.
Yeah.
Because it was about this guy, Alzheimer's and all this stuff, and I was like, nope. Because
No,
it does.
sir.
It was going to break me. Dude, I was on the verge, man. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, there. Stuff like that. Okay, yeah. Because that's a genuine emotional response to something that really touched you, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But I'm not going to sit there. I'm not going to encourage that to be like a normal thing. Well, if you see a flower that you think is beautiful, maybe you shed a tear. No.
I'm going to say, wow, man, that flower's awesome.
That looks
and
cool.
And then I'm going to move on.
Yeah. I mean, okay. But that's what I'm saying. Like there's a point.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by male intimacy, though. Genuine male intimacy should still be in the context of a man.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But that's what I didn't get into I didn't have time. Because I mean, when I was looking at that stuff, I was like, okay, I could spend weeks digging into all that and just tearing it down. I didn't want to do that, but I just wanted to say that they're, being more emotional and vulnerable with your wife is a good thing, but you still don't want to be crying with your wife every day, whatever. You know what I'm saying? That's still not.
My wife doesn't cry every day.
No, but I mean, or like if you were to say, hold on, I'll be back for a minute. And you tell your wife that and we go in the other room and have a good cry and come out. Like, what?
Nah.
No.
No, I mean, and the thing I think that kind of puts the finest point on it is, I don't think knowing your wife and my wife the way I know your wife and my wife, I don't think they'd want us to act that way. Right?
No, I know my wife. No.
My wife would be like, there is something wrong with you.
Yeah. Like, what the hell's going on?
She's like, what is going on in your brain?
No.
Now, don't get me wrong. It just doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense. Like the current definition of being emotional or vulnerable for men is just so, to me, destructive. It's just a destructive force it's another way. It's another expectation for the stripping of.
Yeah. Be vulnerable with your wife, dude.
Yeah.
That's the whole key. Leave it with your wife.
Yeah.
And look, there is, I'm not saying you should never cry. That's not it. But it's like, come on, man. It's not, there are times in your life where you're going to get kicked in the teeth or something and you're going to, but it should be temporary.
Yeah. It should just be temporary, man.
I mean, I didn't break down in tears, but just on that subject, I mean, my 8-year-old went and had to get shots this morning.
Yeah.
She's on the autism spectrum. So it's
a big deal.
Oh, big deal. And it's really hard. And I hated not to be able to be with her. Right. Cause I'm, for some reason, me and her have like a thing and I can calm her down. I can handle that better.
Yeah.
Not that Julie doesn't do a good job, but it's just, she just likes daddy to coddle her and like get her through situations. Right. And I hated it, but she did what I told her to.
Yeah.
And she was like she was getting ready to get the shot. She goes, Mama, I can do this. And so she told her, so Jackie, you got this. Jackie, you got this. Jackie, you got this. And she kept telling her, that's exactly what she was saying to herself, right? Out loud. And she goes, okay, I'm ready. And did it.
Yeah.
Didn't have a freaking fit or nothing. I was like the proudest dad of all time. I didn't get to see it, but my wife was like, anyway. So, that didn't break me down to tears, but I was really proud of it. Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a side note. Also a side note, your shoes are very blue.
They are. They're super blue.
Wow.
My wife picked those out.
It was like distracting, dude. I'm sitting there trying to talk to you. It's like
I cried when I saw them. I'm just kidding.
They're freaking blue, man.
They are blue.
I like them though.
They're blue. Anyway, here's the thing too. Men, I'm going to give you some advice.
Here it comes.
Tell your wives how important they are to you from time to time. I try to as often as I can, and I know I don't do it enough, but my wife is a truly prophetic woman in the sense of, really wanting to give our family a vision. And her vision is not always my vision. Not because I want something different, but because we're still working on the vision, right? But she has a different view. And, I've kind of noticed lately how sacrificial she can be. She's been our number one fan in this podcast along with your wife, right? She really wants this to be successful. And I'm not for monetary reasons, but I think she believes in what we're trying to do. And, me being here is a sacrifice because I leave her and I leave the kids and she's got to take care of all that. And my advice for men in the most general sense is, you know what? Just pull your wife aside sometimes and tell her how much you appreciate who she is and what she does. Right?
I heard somebody say one time, like 12 non-sexual touches in a day.
Yeah.
Something like that. Right.
Yeah.
You really need to make it. Look, it takes effort, dude. And some days you're going to be good at it and some days you're not. But I mean, if you just keep that on you, just to make sure she knows how much you appreciate her.
Well,
or whatever the case may be.
A great example of that is my wife's parents. I didn't realize this until my wife and I had been married for a couple of years. But when her dad walks in the door, the first thing he does is goes to his wife, gives her a kiss, and acknowledges her. And that takes being very intentional, right? I think women, especially, dedicated women, appreciate intentionality.
I would agree.
Right. And again, if you guys think I'm like prognosticating because I'm an expert, I have great faults in these areas myself. And I work on them constantly. Right.
Yeah. He ain't good at it.
I ain't good. Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate that, Reg. And my shoes are blue, by the way. But, and I try every day to work on that, but then just intentionally giving your wife acknowledgement in that way, just hey, I hope you had a good day. Hey, thank you for this, just being intentional enough to let her know that she is the North Star for what you're trying to do.
Okay.
Right.
Let's take that. Let's go back.
Okay.
You need to learn how you or your spouse shows their love.
Yeah.
You need to learn that.
Yeah.
You can ask that.
Yeah.
It's totally cool for you to go, how can I show you?
Yeah.
I love you. How can I show you that I appreciate you? You can ask that freaking question. Cause I'm telling you, sometimes you ain't gonna know unless you do. But it's critical. And for both the husband and the wife to understand it, you're going to do it different.
Yeah.
You got to understand that it's not going to be the same. The husband's going to do it one way. The wife's going to do it another way. And you kind of have to, because it's like, you can't expect the wife to like show her love by making money.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And she's not going to want to do that anyway, most likely. That's not how she's going to want to show you her love.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, you must figure that out though.
Yeah. You gotta put some time into etching that out, right? Like,
don't be afraid, man.
I don't think it was my wife's words of affirmation. And I think it was we've been married now for 21 years. I think it was probably a good decade into our marriage before I figured out. She actually just came out and told me one night and I was like, oh, well, crap. I didn't even know that. All right.
Now I know.
And now I know, right? But, I think that, but also, and I'm going to be honest, when I first got on this, I was I'm going to teach women how men work. And then as the more I got into studying this, the more I realized that we know as little as they probably know in that sense, right? So, but one thing I will encourage women to do is if you look at your husband and you ask him if he's okay, and he looks at you and goes, yes, he may not be okay. So it may be time for you to spend time with him. Let's be clear. 7 out of 10 men commit suicide. 7 out of 10 suicides are men, right? One of the number one causes for divorce in Christian marriages is adultery. But here's another disturbing statistic. 60% of the adultery in Christian marriages is through men. It's not 50-50. It's through men. And the reason given is lack of affection from their wives, lack of acknowledgement from their wives.
I've always said, if you feed me,
yeah,
you have sex with me, I'm good. Look, I'm not very complicated, dude.
Honestly, for me, it's more, feed me, hang out with me,
Yeah.
Let's hang out with me. Let's do something fun.
But
And
see,
yeah,
I'm not even. I'm not even there, man. It's like if you just handle those two things, I'm good. And all that other stuff's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying my two main things.
Yeah.
Are you fix me a nice meal? Let's go have some time. We're good. I'm good.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's pretty much every man for the most part.
But that's what I mean.
Right?
But it's that part for most men isn't complicated.
Well, it isn't. But
there's more to it.
Well, I think it's not complicated for men. I think it's more complicated for women.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
I think that because women have such an emotional component to intimacy, they cannot draw that relational line between where a man finds intimacy and where they find intimacy. And I think that's the struggle, right? You can't, you can't relegate everything to one thing. And I think that's what everybody does, right? Like my wife needs me to talk to her, acknowledge her, I need my wife. I don't mind telling you, my wife can walk up to me and touch the back of my head if I'm having a rough day, and suddenly that day is not as rough. So there's different communications, but what needs to be done is we need to be clear about what the communication line is, not coming from her to me, but from me to her and the other way around. Right.
But we have to take the lead on that stuff.
Yeah, we do.
Most of the time, your wife will silently be in anguish.
Yes, she will. My wife will suffer silently.
Yes.
Until it
boils
reaches
over.
a boiling point.
And it is
right.
Then you're like, holy cow.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden as a man, you're like, well, dude, what is going on?
Why didn't you tell me?
Really what it is, I think that'd be another piece of advice I'd give for women in relationships is if you want something from your husband, just ask. He'll give it to you, but you got to ask.
Yeah, you can't assume that we're going to know.
Yeah, you can't assume.
We don't do that.
And also, guys, if your wife has been silent for a really long time, that's a problem.
Yeah, you got something going on.
Right? Something's happening. It may not be anything major. It may be something massive. But what I've learned is if my wife is silent for a very long time, something is going wrong. She's upset about something. She's not getting something she needs. And guys, again, I'm learning this stuff. I'm 21 years in. I'm still learning this stuff, but one thing I would encourage every married couple, every about to be married couple, sit down and have that conversation.
Yes.
What am I not doing? What are you not doing? What can I do better? What can you do better? And have those things happen in a way but make it a loving conversation, man. Don't make it a combative conversation, because there's nothing worse than attaching aggression to emotion, because it just becomes a mess. So,
well, and I mean too, look, divorce these days is too easy.
Yeah.
And people see that as an easy way out when they're just, I don't feel close to him anymore.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's not really that's not a good reason. Yeah. That's something that can be fixed.
Well, I think that comes from having a misconception of what the definition of love is.
I would agree.
Right.
I would agree too.
So,
because I mean, look, as physical creatures as men are, but I mean, even myself, like I was such a physical, like way too far. Looks was almost everything. It was, and it took me, I had to be diligent about trying to get rid of that. And it wasn't that I wanted to like completely get rid of what I was attracted to, but I needed to see women differently in order for me to really be more able to have a successful marriage.
Yeah.
Thankfully I did. You know, me and Julie would never have happened probably if I hadn't got over some of that nonsense. Cause I mean, look, my wife is so awesome. I mean, I would have probably missed out on that had I had these idiotic, unreal expectations of things. And the reason why is because I realized that there's much more involved in that intimacy than just a physical body. Like there was so much more to a woman than just what she looks like. And those parts are actually kind of better anyway.
Well, and to take that a step further, I mean, just as you know, one of the things that has always attracted me to my wife and will attract me to her till the day I probably drop is the fact that she is modest.
Yeah.
There's honestly, you know, and I run into this a lot. It's, well, I can't believe that men ogle me. Well, hey, if you put the goods out there, they're going to check out the goods, right? And that's not their fault. I mean, I'm not saying that you need to be, and by no means am I saying you need to be harassed or sexually assaulted. Those are horrible things and they should never happen. But I know that what my wife has is for us, right? And that makes it amazing because I know that what I have and what she has is for us, right?
Here's how I would relate that, dude, because I get tired of, I see a lot of those gym videos.
Yeah. Oh, the trying to catch somebody creeping videos.
Yes.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, look,
what a waste.
Because why? Because the thing is, you're wearing like skin tight little shorts.
Yeah.
Half your butt cheek hanging out. You got nothing going on except for this little bitty top.
Yeah.
And you're in there bending over and doing all kinds of nonsense. That's really distracting for a dude.
Well, here's the thing. Be reasonable. If you're going to dress that way, you're going to draw attention. I'm not saying don't dress that way. If you want to go buy all the skimpies that you want to buy and wear them in public, do your thing. But you're going to attract attention.
It's not the same though. But think of a dude, okay, who just walks into the workout, right?
Uh-huh.
And he's got like some skimpy, tight looking shorts on.
Are you talking like some Bruce Jenner in the triathlon shorts?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm talking like we got a banana hammock going on, right? You know?
Yeah.
Dude's just in there ripping it up, all swollen because he's just been tearing it up in the gym. Yeah. I mean, are you saying that you wouldn't be distracted by that as a female? Kidding me?
Yeah.
Not at the same level, granted, because it's different. But I mean, dude, no. I mean, that's the thing, man. I mean, look, I get it. I just hate those things. It just despises me that some. It's really entrapment, I think.
Yeah. Well, but that's what I said. I mean, like if look, man, if you're gonna go out that way, and it's the same for a dude. If you're running around in a tank top, all buffed out, with flip flops on,
you want to get noticed.
You're doing that to get noticed, dude.
You want people to see your arms.
You want people to see your arms and your chest and your back.
Yes.
So it's not a single standard, right? Like like this is funny, and I don't think we've ever gone swimming together, Reggie, in the entire time we've known each other. But I was at a pool party with my wife one time, and we were swimming, and I don't swim without a shirt on. And
you don't?
No, I don't. And
really?
Not even in the ocean. And the lady goes, "Hey," she goes, "Why don't you?" She goes, "Do you have like a scar or something, or is there something wrong that you don't take your shirt off?" And I said, "No." I said, she goes, "Well, why don't you take your shirt off?" I said, "Because that's not for everybody."
See, I'm totally not like that.
That's not for everybody. I was raised in my grandparents' house. We weren't allowed to run around without shoes and shirts on in the house because it was disrespectful to my grandmother. So, but my grandfather always told me, and now my grandfather had his faults, but he always said, when you're married, what you guys do is for you.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
So that is a gift that your wife gets. That's not a gift that you give to everybody else, right? And it's not that I'm not telling anybody go put the shirt on while they swim. You do whatever you want to do. But for me, whatever I've done, I've lost nearly over 70 pounds in the last 2 years, right? I've gotten in pretty good shape. Am I a Greek Adonis? No. Can I hold my own? Yes. But that's not for everybody else. That's for my wife, right? And I teach my sons that too. Like my sons, I love them. My youngest, he loves running around without a shirt on. Put a shirt on. Why? There's women in the house. Show respect.
I get that, dude.
Right?
I don't necessarily disagree with that. And because I always I don't walk around in underwear.
Yeah.
Or any of that stuff. But I don't really go around the house without a shirt on. But swimming, I take my shirt off. Matter of fact, the one we had this church worship team at the pool thing. Yeah. I think I was the only one without a shirt on.
Oh, dude. Part of it too, though, I'll admit, is I'm transparent.
Me too. But
I burn thinking about going out into the sun.
I just don't care. It's like I just don't care.
But for me, I don't like the guys at the gym. They come in, the dude that's got, it's a full t-shirt, but it's 3 sizes too small, and you can see his heartbeat through the t-shirt fabric. Yeah, I don't do that, man, because there's just no point. Yeah. I mean, it's, but I'm also, for me, I'm in an age where that's just not important to me anymore.
Well, yeah, I probably would. I guess where I'm at is I got to the point where I just don't care.
Yeah.
So if I'm swimming, I just don't really care. But, I don't do yard work.
Yeah.
Without a shirt on or something. You know what I mean?
You're not out there in your cutoff jean shorts and your Timberland boots.
I'm not doing that, man.
And your yellow construction helmet with your clear safety glasses.
I have an orange, old school forestry helmet.
Oh, sweet.
I'm sure my wife would love for me to go out there in the little shorts and have the helmet on and look like that, but no.
Work gloves on, but no pockets to put them in if you take them off, right? I got it.
Look at me. Woo!
But I mean, what this all really boils down to, man, with intimacy is, if you really want to have true intimacy with your wife, husband, you must carve out time for them.
Time,
communication. And by time, I mean time to communicate, time to talk about the good and the bad, time to talk about how things are going. How do you feel? Right. And I struggle with this subject. I struggle with money, right? Mainly because my wife is way better with money than I am. So I got to a point at one time where I was like, why don't you just take care of the money and I'll forget it exists? But she wants to talk about it, and I fight talking about it, but I have to really work on being willing to have open conversations about it. But time, and especially time alone, get a babysitter. Take that time where it's just the two of you. Because let's be clear, it was the two of you before there were kids. It's going to be the two of you after the kids move out. I can say this, and this is not anything but the truth. My wife is my best friend. She no knows doubt. Me in ways that no other human knows me. And I want to make sure that when the kids move on and they're successful and they're living their lives, and don't get me wrong, I'll always be a dad. I always love my boys. They are the greatest gift I've probably ever been given.
Well, when they get older,
right?
They'll be your friend.
Yeah. And we'll be, people get mad at me when I say that. I'm like, right now I'm not friends with my kids, but when they're adults and then that will become friends. Right. But I literally, nothing fuels me more. Like when I left our dinner last night and we were going home and we had spent the whole day hanging out, and her and I just spent the whole day together. I was refueled.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Right? That's very cool.
I was refueled, and I was like, man, and that is so important to me. And I tell her all the time, I love spending time with you. I want to spend time with you because I can say anything to my wife.
Sure.
And she doesn't tear it apart. She doesn't destroy it. She'll question it, but in a healthy way. But it's so, what you'll find is if you make time for that, man, you will make just the most fruitful marriage you can make.
Yeah.
Right. Like even when my wife and I are fighting, she knows how I feel about her, and trust me, I don't care how good your marriage is. You can fight about stuff.
Well, let me say this about fighting though, too. You are going to have disagreements.
Mm-hmm.
I take it upon myself to be the one who apologizes first.
Okay.
It's usually always me.
Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to know that I just learned something from Reggie. Ding. All right, go ahead, man.
It's usually me because I think it's my responsibility to resolve the conflict.
I'm very hard-headed.
I know. And this took me one bad marriage and this good one that I don't want to screw up, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, I may think she's so wrong, but probably in that disagreement, I said something I shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't call my wife names or nothing. That's not, we don't do that. Right. No. But I was angry, dropped an F-bomb, something, right?
Yeah.
Cause I got really torqued up. So I'll apologize. I'm usually the one who will initiate the apology.
The rectification of the situation. Yes.
And Julie will tell you because it's like, I really do think I
really need to work on that.
I'm telling you, dude, it saves you so much time and energy. And sometimes that just because you apologize, she might not be ready to be cool with it, but at least you've initiated it. And then that cuts that short.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just say that. No matter what the problem is, you make the first. I would just suggest make that move to rectify it.
Yeah,
because it she'll appreciate that more than you know.
And something else for the dudes: don't forget that as simple as you see a problem is as complicated as she does. So when we have this tendency to want to go, well, you know what? It's all cool. Just get over it. It'll be cool. It's not that simple.
No.
Right. Or if your wife is stressing about something, well, the wrong answer to that she's looking for is not, you shouldn't stress about that. It's not a big deal. Right. She's looking for someone to hash that out with and figure out why it doesn't feel right. And when you dismiss her in that way, you make her feel unheard.
But this goes back to if you're trying to if you're intimate with your spouse, you will get to know these things.
Mm-hmm.
You will not be afraid to ask those questions. You'll not be afraid to, it's easier when you've developed this intimate relationship with your spouse, when you've taken the time, when you've communicated, when you've really got to know your spouse at a soul level.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hard.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier than if you're just, if you've been a recluse and you kind of look, if you work towards that intimacy thing, things work out a whole lot better.
Yes, I believe that is true.
I mean, disagreements and all that kind of stuff, they work out a whole lot better, man.
Yeah.
So intimacy is important.
Mm-hmm.
There's biblical definitions of intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you gotta love your wife like Christ loved the church, man. If you fulfill that, you're on the way.
Yeah.
That's a big, big, big thing to understand.
Yeah.
And I would just say we just make the effort. Be the man of the household, man. Be the leader.
Stand up, man. Take charge. And what I mean by that is lead by example, right? Something I'm still working on. Something I just found out Reggie's very good at. Very quality at it. Quality. Reggie got a gold star on his chart.
Well, that's also because I'm a hothead too, man.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
You got to understand that's also because I got a temper. So
fair enough.
I know that I'll lash out sometimes. So that's kind of what I did. I just figure, okay, I did something wrong. So you got to understand that's where it's from too.
Yeah. And also, guys, remember, nothing solves things better than a good conversation, right? Listen, respond, everything will work out.
One thing with intimacy that I want to make sure we bring up before we end this.
Nice.
Pray with your spouse.
Yes. Very much a struggle at times.
Which both of us suck at.
Yeah.
But when you think about intimacy, when you and your wife are sitting there and you're talking to God together, that's probably, for me, that's the most vulnerable and the most intimate I can be.
Yeah.
You will not regret that.
Well, and on top of that too, and this goes without saying, pray for your spouse. Something that I do every day. I take a few minutes right before my day starts when I get to the office. And I just pray for my wife, for my kids, for, just for peace.
Do you ever tell Julie that what you prayed for her about?
I have it from time to time. I'll tell her, right?
I think that's a good thing too.
Yeah. I tell her, I pray.
Every once in a while.
And what might be a good idea? Ooh, I'm going into uncharted territory. Maybe ask what your wife would like for you to pray for her for.
There you go.
What would you like? What do you need that I can pray for you for today, dear? Right? Man, Reggie, you're all inspiring tonight and stuff. You're all like giving me all this inspiration.
I do what I can.
But anyways, guys, as usual, R&B Talks on Facebook, Instagram,
like, subscribe,
Insta
dislike,
Twitter,
do whatever.
Insta Chat, Twittergram, all those things.
We're not on Twitter.
Snap Twitter.
Or what is it now? X.
We don't have any. We ain't on X.
X.
Sounds kind of weird when you say that out loud, doesn't it?
Silly,
sounds
dude.
completely off center.
Yeah, I didn't understand that whole marketing thing that he did with the whole, let's say, put her to X.
Yeah, let's turn it into X.
What are you going to do? X somebody? That doesn't sound right.
I'm gonna put out an Xer.
I just exited.
I just exited something.
That
What?
doesn't make sense.
That's not even proper English.
No.
But anyway, yeah, like, dislike, come look at the page, post your comments. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to go back and forth. We love input, right? What's that?
Topic suggestions.
Topic suggestions. Yes, that's actually a really good idea. Topic suggestions. Because as good as we are at coming up with them, eventually,
Are we really that good at it?
I don't know. We've done well so far, but I think we've done all right.
Hey, we've talked about things.
Talked about things, right? Talked about things, but I think, topic suggestions. As usual, we love civil discourse. If you're gonna post nasty stuff, dude, we're not gonna respond because it's not worth our time. We want to have a good discourse and conversation, and as usual, man, thank you guys for tuning in. These are 2 mics. These are 2 chairs. These are 2 guys. We'll see you next time.
See you.